So what are the top 3 trends that you'd say would be stylish, rather like stylish and effective as well? So what are the top 3 trends for you?
Well, first on my list right now is big typography. You know, we had this era of like trying to fit websites into mobile, right? Everyone's got a smartphone. Everyone's trying to scale your content down so people can look at it on a smartphone when they're walking around, traveling, whatever. And so we're in that area. We're past that. And now people are like, oh, wait a second. We can do some cool stuff with big typography. It doesn't always have to be really small, because actually big typography on a smaller phone is easier to read than just like a bunch of tiny microscopic copy. So big typography, really cool. Big headlines come in, they're impactful, and along those lines, not just big typography, but serifs are being used a lot more too, you know?
I love serifs. Love serif fonts.
And what do they say? They say that serifs are actually the easiest to read of all typographies when it comes to that versus sans serif.
Speaking of readable, like usability, like serif fonts are more usable because they're more readable, legible at a glance than a sans serif. Now, I wouldn't make the choice based solely on that, but I definitely like serif fonts for blogs and article type content.
Well, now you're getting back to the old newspaper gurus who are going to tell you everything should be designed like a newspaper. And maybe that is one of those takeaways, that serif fonts are easier to read.
You know what they wouldn't do on a newspaper that we've been trying to do for the past 10 years in web design is taking the main image and then slapping text over the top of the main image.
That trend needs to die. And I think it finally is dying. We're kicking it to the curb. No more of this obfuscation of image and text, and it's like, is this readable? I think I can put opacity to like 0.47563 where it's just dark enough and just light enough.
And what we're talking about is like you've got that image and then you put like a dark overlay over the top of it and then put your text on top. But especially, you know, we have a lot of construction companies and people who have visual stuff. It's kind of weird to put an overlay over the top of your gorgeous new home. You know what I mean? Like,
which is a perfect segue into the next piece of 2020 design is layered elements, because we're getting out of this era of what we're talking about, the text over the images where we obfuscate all these things, and now people are like, oh, wait a second, I can have a headline that doesn't go over my image and they can both be impactful, and it's not just like this weird bastard child of design that shouldn't exist.
And I've done it so many times, so I don't want to talk too much smack.
Well, no, I mean, I have too.
I think it was very like big for a while. You kind of thought you had to do it, right? Like, and then it just kind of comes down and it's like, we can make this image a little smaller, and if it's still intact, fully intact, then it's still
See, that's the kind of thing you
powerful.
get. The thing, you know, that like, that's very like stuck, like corporate-y WordPress theme. So like that's a part of that investment that we're talking about, right? You're saying, you know, we don't want to invest the money to get a really well-designed site. We're just going to go out and buy a WordPress theme, right? That's what you're going to get. You're going to get these trends from 4 years ago. I recently sat in a meeting with a prospective client where they said, we don't want our website to look like one of those stock WordPress themes, and that's what they're talking about. That was only 3 or 4 years ago, guys.
And that's where it basically leads to weird looking websites on accident. And I mean, I don't want to pitch us too hard here because I want this to be useful to anybody, anywhere. And I want to kind of, but I do want to say,
put the ego at the door.
One thing, this is my last bit on like Hook Agency and why I like our team, is because we've got 3 people, myself, Zach, and Matt, and we're all somewhat involved with design and development. And the reason is, you know, like if you're a home builder and you've never actually built something, you know what I mean? You're more of a general contractor and you all these subcontractors. There's kind of like this level of craftsmanship that you never learned, and the designs don't transfer very well into the actual finished home.
Sure.
So the same goes with development, where it's like if you are a designer who's also been involved in the build, you have a much better sense of what can be accomplished. And if you're a developer that's implementing a design, then you are more likely to pay attention to the little things, like the details that maybe weren't defined in the design process, but you can define those in the development.
Makes you more well-rounded.
And that leads to a better thing. So basically, that's my last little tiny pitch on Hook, because we have these 3 passionate designer developer types. So what are some other honorable mentions for 2020 web design trends that a small business owner or construction company might be interested in?
Vertical typography. So, everything we know reads left to right, top to bottom, but some people are going out of that box and they're taking less important headlines or maybe less important words related to their brand, and they're turning them sideways a full 90 degrees. Is that what it is? Full 90 degrees?
Yeah, I've seen this. It's dope.
And it's cool because it's always done with secondary stuff that doesn't really, it's like words that aren't super important to the engagement of the site, but it makes it look way more designed than the site really is. It adds another level of aestheticness to the site. So that's a really cool trend going on. Another one we've got in here is organic shaped cutouts, and I've actually kind of been on this a lot lately. Organic shaped cutouts.
Hey, when it's working, man.
Look, we're outside living in a world of boxes and squares and rectangles and lines and hard edges. Organic shapes, though, they're so kind of what did a client call them the other day? A melted circle. It's like you have this circle that's started melting and gets pulled, and it's cool. It's organic.
And you cut that out. You cut that out of white space, basically. You show through an image.
It's like an amoeba or like a blob, and it flows smoothly, and that's really hot right now because it's a major break from the normal hard edges and lines that we're always tuned in to look for.
We already talked about serifs.
Yep.
I'm going to throw in mine, which I call the 10% offset image, which is basically this can be actually paired very well with that vertical typography. But basically pulling the image off to the side a little bit and leaving a little strip of color or white space on the side. And this kind of comes back to that kind of cutout feel, making it feel like it was really everything had to be full width for a while, full width everything, and now I believe that kind of cutout feel has kind of replaced that.
Yeah.
And I love the way it looks. It just
you can still see the background of this site, and I think a lot of that has to do with cohesion. Having big full width sections is really jarring because it's am I still on the same site? Is this something new? And it's about making pages flow better and be readable.
Exactly.
What else we got?
We got typographic cutouts. So I've seen this done where there'll be a big, let's say A or whatever your brand, something related to your brand, a typographic or a symbol cutout, and then showing through that could be a video. So I actually haven't done this in a design, but I've seen it done and it looks really sweet.
But
and
we're going to.
Yes, we're going to.
It's only a matter of time.
So for 2020, I'd say typographic cutouts, and
Next, we got video on every page. Okay, video has a ton of benefits, not just for your website. Video is more engaging for users. We're in such a video-heavy world right now. Look at Facebook, look at Instagram, everything's a video. But not only that, it's really good for SEO. Tim, why is video good for SEO?
You want people to stay on your website longer. So especially if you got a setup where you can do video on a regular basis, try doing a video for each of your key service pages. You get people to stay a little bit longer, even if they just watch 30 seconds of that video. That average time is probably higher than your competitor's page, and that time on site is used as a ranking factor. So if Google sees people go to your site, they spend 45 seconds on average, and they go to a competitor's site and they spend 15 seconds on average, you're going to go up higher in the algorithm, because that's basically a user signal that Google is looking at to say, is this a valuable site, and did it fulfill the intent of that searcher? So it's kind of crazy. That's why we talk about trying to make a bigger paragraph at the beginning of a page, or just something to catch their attention. That's why we use images at the top of pages. That's why we have big headlines. A lot of these things really kind of correspond back, and it's why having a good looking website is important. I like just ending this whole thing on, it is important to have a good looking website. Just, that's not the only thing. That's why the trust factors, call to actions, and some of these other elements are really important to make it effective, but it also needs to be good looking because you get people to stay longer.
People gravitate to good design.
Yes, there was actually a study that was done that was like 68% of women or something like that went to a healthcare site and didn't feel like though it was well designed would leave, because it's just a trust. Good design is a trust factor. It does make.
I've been saying that for years.
It makes your site more reputable. It seems reputable because you go. Let's say you go into a store and you see like a bunch of crumpled shirts in the back off the rack. No offense, TJ Maxx, but it does not make you look like you're a high end.
After us now, man.
No, exactly. TM.
It shows, having a well-designed site shows that you care. You know, and again, it's back to those. Even if it's only 10 people a month, that might be a lot for some people. 10 people a month, one person a month that leaves your site because it's not well designed, that adds up over time. That lead could have been a bunch of money. You know what I mean? That adds to your bottom line. So take the time, care, show your users that you care, and have a nicely designed site.
And we've got the last 2020 thing is light complementary animations, and this could be like a little interactive piece, like a clock that turns on hover,
like a button that maybe when you hover over it moves up a little bit.
Yeah, or some little thing that kind of makes the site feel interactive. It also could be like an illustration style, like you illustrate the benefits of your product or service with a light illustration or an icon or things like that. But more and more companies are kind of adding like an illustration style that's their style. You go to MailChimp.com, very popular service for email. They have a very clear illustration style now that they're using that's almost branded. So I'd say that that's a pretty common thing. I think that that's been in the last couple of years of web design trends.
Well, something interesting I actually want to say about animations and having a variety of animated parts in the site. I'm reading this book that talks about the psychology of design, and humans actually have a pretty surprising, well-developed sense of peripheral vision sense. And so, you know, a lot of that animation, it's in the peripheral vision of the viewers when they're reading copy, and that's good. They see that and it's impactful to them because of how well developed our peripheral vision sense is. It goes back to like this hunting gatherer survival of the fittest from evolutionary, you know, Darwin, whatever. But that plays into why we should have animation and micro interactions on our site, is because it's in their peripheral vision and it engages people more.
Yeah, and action, right? Like if we developed that so strongly because it led to our survival. So now when there's something that moves a little bit, you're much more likely to pay attention to it, right?
Yeah.
It moves a little bit, you pay attention to it because first of all, you've got the survival instinct. Second of all, it helps us get more customers. It helps our website seem more engaging. I want to wrap this up. I've had a great time chatting with you. We've covered why just having a beautiful website won't cut it. It needs to be effective too. We've covered 2020 web design trends.